The missile lock warning screamed through the cockpit at 0347 hours, and the B-2 Spirit banked hard left as the ALR-89 defensive system erupted in cascading red alerts. This was not a fair fight. The American pilot was shouting coordinates in vain because the $2 billion stealth bomber was already obsolete against the trap waiting below. The Iranian Jask strategic base had activated a quantum sensor grid that stripped away every layer of American protection, turning the legendary Ghost into a helpless target. At 50,000 feet, the crew realized with chilling certainty that they were outgunned and completely cornered. The United States Air Force was not the predator here. They were the prey, exposed and defenseless against a superior technological ambush. Now the impossible was real, and the B-2 was losing. Before the first missile fires, hit the like button if you are ready for high-altitude combat intensity. Or drop a comment if you believe this quantum scenario is pure fantasy. Because what happens next will challenge everything you know about modern warfare. The horizon did not just vanish. It was erased by a technological tsunami, as Iran unleashed a suffocating saturation strike of 300 Shahid, 136 loitering munitions. These Delta Wing kamikaze drones filled the sky like a swarm of mechanical locusts, creating a steel curtain that blocked out the stars. The radar display inside the American jets dissolved into a chaotic sea of red warning strobes, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of contacts from the dark peaks below. The legendary F-14 Tomcats roared from their hidden bunkers, their afterburners lighting up the mountains. Their variable sweep wings cut through the night, fully swept back for supersonic interception, flying alongside 24 agile and lethal MiG-29 Fulcrums in a coordinated kill box formation. 4 American F-35C stealth fighters fought back with desperate ferocity. They opened their internal bays and ripple-fired their entire load of AIM 120D AMRAAM missiles in seconds, hoping to punch a hole through the enemy wall, but it was futile. Their advanced sensor fusion computers were blinded by the sheer density of 400 hostile targets choking the airspace. There were simply too many threats to track. 2 EA-18G Growlers screamed over the tactical network that their ALQ-99 electronic warfare pods were literally melting from the heat of trying to jam an entire country air defense network at once. The systems were burning out under the strain of the electromagnetic assault. Then, the sky itself seemed to fracture as 16 Fatah-2 hypersonic missiles ignited their scramjet engines and screamed down from the stratosphere at Mach 15 like meteors that defied the laws of physics. The air around them turned into plasma, making them invisible to interception. The U.S. formation was stripped naked. Every defensive countermeasure was gone. Flares were exhausted. Chaff was depleted, and ammunition was spent. They were drifting helplessly, staring into the face of absolute mathematical impossibility. Impact in 10 seconds. The situation is absolute despair. If you were the commander-in-chief with 10 seconds remaining, would you choose option 1? Order the pilot to self-destruct the bomber to protect its secrets at the cost of the crew, or option 2? Authorize the activation of a forbidden experimental weapon that risks detonating the aircraft instantly. Comment number 1 or number 2 right now to decide their fate. Deep within the reinforced concrete bowels of the Pentagon, the National Military Command Center was suffocating under the weight of inevitable failure. 4 star generals stood paralyzed before the strategic display, watching the solitary blue icon of Reaper 01 being swallowed by a sea of hostile red vectors. The atmosphere was not panic, but absolute resignation. The outcome was mathematically certain. Total loss of asset and crew in 8 seconds, the pride of the United States Air Force was about to become falling debris over the Gulf of Oman. A heavy silence dominated the room as the most powerful military leaders on Earth realized they were powerless to stop the disaster unfolding halfway across the world. They were watching a checkmate in real time. The enemy had won. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs stared at the countdown clock, feeling the crushing burden of national humiliation. As the timer hit 5 seconds, he lifted the secure red handset. He did not ask for permission. He gave a command never meant to be spoken. Execute Black Protocol immediately. Override all safety limiters. The signal beamed to a quantum satellite and slammed down to the B-2 cockpit at light speed. The screaming alarms cut out. A synthetic voice spoke. Command override accepted. Safety limits disabled. Weapon system Helios online. The pilot pressed a guarded red button never touched in flight. Suddenly, the B-2 Spirit defied all aerodynamic logic. Thousands of gallons of supercooled liquid nitrogen vented explosively, shrouding the bomber in a massive ethereal cloud of white mist. It looked like the aircraft was dissolving from the belly of this freezing fog. A perfect sphere of vantablack metal descended, suspended by a magnetic field inches below the aircraft skin. At 0.5 seconds to impact, the sphere opened like a mechanical eye. No fire, no explosion. Instead, a deep and terrifying hum resonated through the sky. A beam of high-power microwave energy combined with a terawatt-class fusion laser erupted, invisible to the naked eye. Its effect was absolute. The 16 hypersonic missiles did not detonate. They simply ceased to exist. The intense energy field vaporized their skins and fried their guidance chips into dust. They dissolved into harmless metallic vapor. The beam swept across the drone swarm like a divine wind. 300 engines died simultaneously, raining lifeless machines into the dark ocean. The radar screen at Jask went blank. The B-2 Spirit emerged from the mist untouched. It was no longer prey. The ghost had returned from the dead as the ultimate predator. Sensors locked onto the source. Target data uploaded to the Fifth Fleet. The counterattack was about to begin. The B-2 Spirit did not retreat. Instead, it ascended to 40,000 feet and transformed into a high-altitude battle manager. The pilot activated the multifunction advanced data link to establish a secure tactical network with the U.S. Fifth Fleet stationed in the Arabian Sea. The sensor fusion capabilities of Reaper 01 had mapped the electronic fingerprint of every Iranian radar emitter and missile silo that revealed itself during the failed ambush. This was the initiation of a digital integration attack where air and sea assets functioned as a synchronized organism. The trap at Jask had failed, and the rules of engagement shifted instantly to a systematic rollback of enemy defenses. 150 miles off the coast, the Gulf of Oman churned. The nuclear-powered guided missile submarine USS Florida received the target package via encrypted low-frequency transmission. The captain ordered a time-on-target firing solution. This tactical requirement meant weapons fired from different distances must impact at the exact same microsecond to overwhelm defense systems. The vertical launch system hatches flew open, and 40 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles erupted from the sea in a sequence of steam and fire. These intelligent machines dropped to 50 feet above the waves to evade radar horizons. As they reached the coastline, they engaged terrain contour matching systems to hug the mountain geometry. They weaved through canyons to mask their signatures and approached Jask from 3 distinct vectors. At exactly 0912 hours, the sky above Jask screamed with the arrival of 40 turbine engines. The ground crews looked up in shock. The impact was an event of absolute neutralization. 40 missiles slammed into 40 separate command nodes and radar arrays simultaneously. The quantum sensor grid was turned into a crater field of twisted metal. The base was blinded and its central nervous system severed. The coordination was so precise that automated defensive guns did not have time to traverse their turrets. With the enemy integrated air defense system shattered, the airspace became permissive for the United States Navy. 2 F-35C Lightning, Two fighters returned to the fray and switched computers to offensive counter-air operations. They utilized AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned array radars to scan through the smoke. They were hunting for mobile transporter erector launchers, trying to relocate into tunnels. The jets shared targeting data automatically via stealth links. They released GBU-53 Stormbreaker smart bombs from 20 miles away. These gliding munitions used millimeter wave seekers to track moving vehicles through debris. The F-35s executed a pincer movement. Secondary explosions rippled across the valley as launchers were consumed in white fire. The battlefield was prepped for the final strategic blow. The B-2 Spirit opened its main weapon bays. Inside hung two monsters of engineering. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. Each weapon weighed 30,000 pounds. They were designed to negate deep burial advantages. The massive bombs fell away, guided by GPS and inertial navigation systems to an accuracy of less than 5 feet. Gravity accelerated the hardened steel casings toward the reinforced bunkers. They hit the mountain with the kinetic energy of a falling freight train. They bored through 60 feet of granite and reinforced concrete like a hot needle through wax. Only when they reached the subterranean command center did the smart delay fuses trigger. The result was a man-made earthquake. The mountain range heaved upward before collapsing. The shockwave pulverized underground infrastructure. Weapon storage facilities imploded from the pressure in less than 15 minutes of coordinated violence. The strategic threat at Jask was erased from the geological map. This was the ultimate demonstration of American doctrine. A seamless integration of stealth, cyber warfare, and kinetic power where no single asset fights alone. The sun began to rise over the Gulf of Oman, casting long golden rays across a scene of absolute devastation. A black pillar of smoke rose 15,000 feet into the atmosphere from what was once the Jask strategic base. It stood as a dark monument to the technological fury that had just been unleashed. The scale of loss is catastrophic. 3 hardened underground command bunkers are now crushed under millions of tons of granite. 40 state-of-the-art radar installations were vaporized instantly. 2 strategic naval piers have collapsed into the sea. Intelligence estimates suggest a financial loss exceeding $5 billion and a strategic setback of 10 years. Over 2,000 highly trained personnel were silenced in the blink of an eye. High above this graveyard of ambition, the B-2 Spirit call sign Reaper 01 banked slowly toward the west. The aircraft was undamaged, but the crew was silent. They had survived the trap, but the adrenaline was now replaced by a solemn realization of the tragedy below. This engagement lasted less than 20 minutes, yet in that short window, the history of warfare was rewritten. The activation of the Helios system proved that quantity is irrelevant when faced with the absolute supremacy of directed energy. However, the destruction of Jask must not be viewed as a triumph of power, but as a stark warning about the fragility of our existence. We have reached a point in human history where our capacity to destroy has outpaced our capacity to heal. The $5 billion of infrastructure smoking below represents resources that could have built schools, hospitals, or fed millions instead. It was turned into dust in an instant of misunderstanding and conflict. The 2,000 lives lost are not just numbers on a report. They were fathers, brothers, and sons. Their loss is a failure of diplomacy and a scar on the collective conscience of humanity. The technology witnessed today makes war too fast, too efficient, and too absolute. There is no glory in pushing a button and erasing a mountain. True strength does not lie in the ability to vaporize an enemy. True strength lies in the courage to sit at a table and talk before the missiles are launched. The technological gap demonstrated today proves that an arms race is a race to the bottom where there are no winners, only survivors standing in the ashes. We build these monsters of engineering under the guise of defense, but we must pray that they serve as a deterrent rather than a solution. Let the rubble at Jask be a testament to what happens when dialogue fails. Peace is the only true victory in an age of absolute destruction. If you want to understand the machines that shape our geopolitical landscape and support content that values peace over conflict, please subscribe to the channel right now. We analyze the technology of defense not to glorify violence, but so that we can better appreciate the value of stability. Share this video with a friend to spread the urgent message that dialogue is our only hope. Together, let's build a community that chooses words over weapons. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and thank you for watching.